welcome in the today's lecture of the surgery. The today's lecture of the surgery, it is the third lecture on the peptic ulcers, isn't it? In previous two lectures, we haven't seen the peptic ulcers. In first lecture, we haven't seen what were the peptic ulcer, its common sites, its etiology. In next lecture, we haven't seen the clinical features and other parts of it. Now, in third lecture of the peptic ulcer, we are going to see the investigations, complications, and the treatment of the peptic ulcer. So, watch the lecture carefully. First of all, I will say the investigations. After the clinical features, the part of the investigations in the peptic ulcer. The investigations in the peptic ulcer, the first investigation or very important investigation is that which confirm the diagnosis of the peptic ulcer is the barium meal examinations. So, ask the patient to take the barium sulfate, and then you have to go for the examinations are there. And what findings are found on the barium meal? These are of the, first of all, in a gastric ulcer. Here we can do the two examinations, first screening examination and second the X-ray place. Now what do you find on the screening examination in gastric ulcer? The first one, tenderness at the ulcer bearing area. So where the ulcer is there, as I said, there will be tenderness. Second, the folds of the scar tissue covering the ulcer site. Isn't it? The folds are there of the scar tissue. This is called rugal convergence. Rugal convergence. And the third one is the evidence of the chronic gastritis. Evidence of chronic gastritis. Second, on X-ray place. So what do you find on X-ray place? When you take the X-ray after barium meal, ask the patient to take the barium and the X-ray is taken there, and this find a typical ulcer crater is found, which is called the Nikke. Typical ulcer crater is found, called as a Nikke, is seen at the site of the ulcer, usually on the lesser curvature. As you have been seen already, the common site in the stomach is the lesser curvature. So this crater found is where? At the lesser curvature of the stomach there. And where? Milk projection outwards. What happens if this ulceration is there, wound is to be there, and when patient swallow it, the food or this meal, what? The barium meal, it projects where? Tuned to the ulcer, and that's seen on the X-rays there. And from the outline is there and stomach. In cases due to the spasms of circular muscle fibers, locally there is evidence of notch, which shows the injoin on the opposite curvature of the stomach. So these are findings in the gastric ulcers on screen examination and the X-ray plate. Now see what finds in the duodenal ulcer. Duodenal ulcer, you can take the two examinations by barium meal examination. There is a screening and second X-ray plate. On the screening, what you find? First of all, hyperacidity of the stomach. Hyperacidity of the stomach. Second, tenderness at the duodenal point, that is at the first part. And the rugal convergence due to the folds of the scar. Rugal convergence, because the scar tissue is there from the fold and shows the rugal. It's sometimes called the rugosities, as seen in the stomach folds. Here also, but that is different. That are the folds of the mucous membrane of the stomach, but here these are the folds of the scar. It's called the rugal convergence. While on the X-ray, we found a typical crater may be seen as this Nikke, as found in the stomach here, in duodenal ulcer, here. Then, in the majority of cases, very characteristic deformity is found there. That's called duodenal cap. Duodenal cap. Here. I show this X-ray. Here. Duodenal cap. This is the characteristic one. This is the site of the duodenal ulcer. This is the first part of the. This is the stomach. This is pyloric orifice. Isn't it? This is the duodenum. And ulcer is seen in the first part of the duodenum. And when ulcer is there, we'll see the duodenal cap due to projection of the meal into the ulcer. Do you understand? So these are the findings in a peptic ulcers on barium meal examination. The gastric findings and the duodenal. Other investigations that you can do, the stool examination for the ocular blood. Ocular blood, as you have been seen, melena will be there in both gastric and peptic ulcer, gastric and duodenal ulcers. Of course, it is more common in the duodenal ulcer, but the blood is found in the both of the ulcer. It indicate there is hemorrhage and there is ulceration is there, which is bleeding there. Then the blood examination for the anemia, gastric analysis can be done, and another important example is the gastroscopy. Gastroscopy, you can say endoscopy also. By instrument endoscope is passed on the inner side of the esophagus as well as the stomach will be and duodenum will be visualized, and with that visualization we will see there is a ulceration. So these are additional investigations are there. First variable endoscopy, then the stool examination for the ocular blood examination for the anemia, and you can do the gastric analysis also there. So as you know, acid level secretion as well as gastric analysis for the find out or examination of the bacteria H. pylori there. So thus these are the investigations used for the diagnosis of the peptic ulcer. Then let's say the complications there. Complications. The complications of the peptic ulcers are there, the acute complications and the subacute and chronic. So complications are divided into three groups: acute, subacute and the chronic. First of all, we will see the acute complications. These are the perforation and the hemorrhage. Perforation and the hemorrhage. Perforation is most likely occurs in the duodenal ulcer. It also occurs in the stomach ulcer, but as compared to that of the gastric ulcer, the duodenal ulcer more tend to perforate because they penetrate, and as you have seen in the pathology, they involve all the layers of the duodenal wall. While gastric ulcers, especially acute, they most commonly involve the superficial layer of the wall of the stomach. Then hemorrhages is common in both. That is in the form of the hematemesis and the melena. Hematemesis more common in the gastric ulcers and less common in the duodenal ulcers. While melena, it is more common in the duodenal and less into the gastric ulcer. As we have been seen, the ratio of the hematemesis and the melena in gastric ulcer is a 60:40, while duodenal 40:60. So these are the acute complications. Then subacute complications. The subacute complication is a residual abscess. Even though it is a rare complication, but it can be occur the residual abscess. This sometimes occurs after the conservative treatment mainly for the perforation. Means perforation takes place and you give the treatment, conservative treatment, the healing will start, and at the site of the penetration of the ulcer, there is development of the abscess. Then chronic complication. This is a penetration. As posteriorly situated ulcers of the stomach and duodenum, it does not perforate sometimes. And they will grow out, especially the posterior wall. The growth involves the posterior wall completely of the stomach and the duodenum, and they opens, but it doesn't perforate. They opens into or extend into the organs or the viscera lying behind them. This here. So mostly these ulcerations here, viscera, the most commonly in the pancreas, occasionally liver, and rarely colon. Most commonly in the pancreas, because pancreas lies immediately behind the stomach and also the duodenum first part, as is the head of the pancreas. So it will be penetrated into the pancreas. Sometimes in the liver and rarely in the colon, forming the gastrocolic fissure. So there is penetration. Next one complication, second one chronic, malignancy. The peptic ulcer may become the malignant, and especially the gastric ulcers have more tendency to become the malignant or the cancers. Duodenal ulcers never, it will turn into the malignancy. So that's why in a gastric ulcer there is a risk of the malignancy. Do you understand? So these are the chronic complications are there. Then third one complication is the stenosis. Stenosis. See, stenosis is more common in the duodenal ulcers. Duodenal ulcers. See, the extensive fibrosis at the base of the ulcer will cause the stenosis, especially the duodenum, and also occurs sometimes even in the stomach is there. And in duodenal ulcers, the popular term is applied for obstruction is the pyloric stenosis here. Pyloric stenosis, isn't it? But actually it is in the duodenal stenosis. Duodenal stenosis. This is stricture or the narrowing of the lumen of the pyloric stenosis. It will have the pylorus of the stomach. That is the difference. Now the pyloric orifice of the stomach, or in between stomach and duodenum, that's called pyloric stenosis. But it is duodenal stenosis in the first part. In the gastric ulcer, the cicatrization takes place. If transverse cicatrices are there, at two sides there will be the stenosis in the gastric ulcer. One is the one transverse cicatrice is there, there is the formation of hourglass stomach is there, and ulcer commonly located more towards the pylorus and cause narrowing at the pylori. And if the cicatrization is the longitudinal in lesser curvature, and this results into a tripod stomach. While with the pyloric ulcer, it will cause true pyloric stenosis. Isn't it? If transverse, where is it? Here in gastric ulcer, if transverse axis cicatrization is there, it will cause the hourglass appearance. Hourglass appearance. If it is longitudinal, it causes tripod stomach. While if at the pylorus, it will cause the pyloric stenosis. It's called true pyloric stenosis. This one is not true pyloric stenosis. Actually, it is a stenosis of the first part of duodenum. So, this is another complication, chronic complication. Stenosis means narrowing of the lumen. Most commonly seen where? In the duodenum. And stenosis is also marked in the stomach. Your stomach where? At the pyloric end or the pylorus, isn't it? So these are the complications are there. Then we'll see the treatment of the peptic ulcer. The treatment of peptic ulcer, it includes the first diet and regimen. First is diet and regimen. Second, medicinal treatment, and the surgical treatment. Here I have divided it into three parts for the convenience of the study, isn't it? The first is a diet and regimen. In diet and regimen, first one thing is that rest as far as practicable or practicable, and the tranquilizers at the night. So rest, it will cool the mind, it will reduce the stress. So as much as possible, practicably, rest will be otherwise there. Second, tranquilizers at the night to get you the sound sleep. If the patient gets the good sleep, then again it will be reduce the risk of the acid secretion and thus the ulcers. Then balanced diet. Balanced diet should be given to the patient. Diet is plays very important role in a management of the peptic ulcer. Diet, these balanced diets should be given 2 hourly at 2 hours of intervals. Especially in case of the duodenal ulcers. Even in gastric ulcer, small food should be given at 2 hours, which will help in the management of the peptic ulcers. And what should you diet? The milk is the best diet. Isn't it? Cold milk, especially cold milk, should be given. It's best. And it will maintain with the milk and rice. Because only milk, we cannot maintain long term. But if the rice is given along with the milk, we can maintain for the long time. And it will become the main diet. Then other balanced diet, isn't it? Especially the bland diet should be given. The diet which is causing the irritation to the mucosa of the stomach should not be given. It should be avoided. Isn't it? Then advise the patient take the diet properly and masticate it properly into the small pieces. Isn't it? So that other diet. The restriction of the food, which food should restrict? Coffee, tea, spices, red gram, chili, etc. That which causing irritation of the gastric mucosa, such a port should be restricted completely. Otherwise, what happens if you start the treatment and patient is taking this such a ports are there, it causes irritation. Continuous irritation, it will not give the relief to the patient. So that's why remember the diet is very important. Then treatment for the anemia, if urgent. As you have seen in clinical features, in most of cases, especially of the gastric ulcer, there is anemia. If anemia is there, treatment for the anemia should be given there. Iron supplementation, vitamin supplementation, folic acids, isn't it? Diet which is rich in the iron and protein and the calcium should be advised to the patient, isn't it? So that's the diet and regimen. Next treatment is the what? The medicinal treatment. Medicinal treatment. The medicinal treatment includes the 4 types of the treatments, isn't it? 4 types of the medicines you have to use here. The first of all, the antacids. Antacids to neutralize the acid. These are what? The one. Antacids in the suitable quantities. Why are we using suitable quantities? Because the dose and quantity of the antacids to be variable with the patient. So that's the suitable quantities. And the most frequently used antacids is omeprazole, lansoprazole, pantoprazole, and the rabiprazole. In some of the books, many of people give this rabiprazole first, but don't start with the rabiprazole directly. First start with the omeprazole, lansoprazole, pantoprazole, and then the rabiprazole. So this antacid neutralizes the acid which is secreted in the stomach, and patient is immediately relieved. Then antibiotics. The antibiotics for controlling infections. As you have seen, one of the cause of the peptic ulcer is the bacterial infection, the H. pylori infection, and the antibiotics should be used in the proper doses. This includes the amoxicillin, then the clarithromycin, and the levofloxacin. Levofloxacin. You can most commonly many of the people use the clarithromycin, isn't it? And amoxicillin also is a good result there, but you can use also the levofloxacin also, isn't it? So there are antibiotics. Then antispasmodic. It is spasmodic, antispasmodic, isn't it? At a regular interval. Should be given at a regular interval, because in most of the cases, patient has the pain. Sometimes there is severe pain which will distress the patient. That's why we need the what? Antispasmodic card. And most commonly used that are the probenthine. Probenthine is most commonly used for. Sometimes you may need the antiemetic also there, because in some patients there will be severe vomiting. You can use the antiemetic also there. Then the most important H2 receptors. H2 receptors, most commonly used for the long-term treatment, which will be the what? Block the H2 and preventing the formation of the HCl, because gastric acid. That the H2 receptors are most commonly used are the famotidine, cimetidine, and the nizatidine. Most commonly used the cimetidine are there, but nowadays many of you use the famotidine also and the nizatidine. So this is the medicinal treatment. What includes antacids, antibiotics, antispasmodics, and the H2 receptors. So this is a medicinal treatment of the peptic ulcer. There is a surgical treatment. Last choice of the treatment is the surgical treatment, because I already said that as much as possible, the early cases and number of the cases they should be treated with the medicinal treatment. And if the medicinal treatment is not benefited, then you have to go for the surgical treatment. Now, what indications for the surgical treatment are there? The indications for the surgical treatment are, see the icon here. The first one, failure of the ulcer to heal or recurrence after rigid medical treatment. So, failure of the ulcer to heal or recurrence of the ulcers after the treatment. At least 6 months for duodenal ulcers and 3 to 4 weeks for the gastric ulcers. If ulcer doesn't heal, then you can go for the surgical treatment. Then second one indication, if the patient is unable to undergo the medical treatment. Many of the patients say, no, I doesn't want to take the medicine for 6 months and long terms, I am getting recurrent pains are there, and they don't have way to take the medicinal treatment. And then in such cases, you can choose the surgery as a treatment. Then intractable pain is the frequent loss of the work. As I already said in that, when advising the antispasmodic, some of the patients have the very severe pain, which is intractable, and it will disturb him, and preventing doing the work, causing disturbance in the work. In such cases also you can go for the surgical treatment. Then fourth, resistance or the reappearance of the persistence or reappearance of pain after the patient has undergone surgical repair of the perforation. If person has gone surgical perforation, unfortunately perforation occurs in acute cases, and the patient gets the pain, and this pain is a persistence and reappearing repeatedly, then you go for the surgical treatment. Then fifth, repeated hemorrhage, either in the form of the hematemesis or the melena. It will cause the anemia. So that's why to control that hemorrhage, you have to go for the surgical treatment. 6. Appearance of the complications, example pyloric stenosis. Then the suspicion of malignancy. So this is a very strong indication. Suspicion of the malignancy, then you have to go for the surgical treatment immediately. And usually, last one, an ulcer of over 5 years duration. If the long-term duration ulcer is there, it indicating it will not be cured with the medicine. Or second thing, it may turn to malignancy or it may cause the complication. So that's why in such cases you have to prepare the surgical treatment. Now what is the choice of the surgical treatment? So the choice of the surgical treatments are there. One is the partial gastrectomy, vagotomy, and the pyeloplasty in case of the gastric ulcer. Partial gastrectomy, vagotomy, and the pyeloplasty. But in case of duodenal ulcer, the surgical treatment is vagotomy, gastrojejunostomy, pyeloplasty, then the enterectomy, and the subtotal gastrectomy. Subtotal gastrectomy. These are the choice of the surgical treatments are there, isn't it? We'll discuss, if we get the time, we'll discuss this treatment in detail in the next lecture. If we get the time along with the other lectures are there. And here partial gastrectomy where the stomach is partially disconnected. Vagotomy where the vagus nerve supplying to the stomach will be cut, isn't it? And this vagotomy will be of the 3 types: truncal, selective, and the highly selective. Truncal means what? There is the dissection of both the anterior and posterior vagal nerves at their main trunk which are entering into the abdomen, and total nerve supply of the abdomen will be cut off. This is called as a truncal one. Second, the selective. Selective means what is the few of the branches of the vagus nerve which supply to mainly pancreas, liver, and the pylorus will be preserved, and rest of the part is cut out. Means there is no total, means the supply of the vagus nerve to the pancreas and liver will remain intact. Why this should be done? Because in case of the truncal vagotomy, the chances of the diarrhea after the vagotomy. So that's why if we preserve the pancreal branch and the hepatic branch of the vagus nerve, then it will prevent the diarrhea. Highly selective very only that nerve which supply to the particular acid bearing area, or where the ulceration chances become acid, mainly acid secreting area where the oxygenating cells are more. Oxygenating cells are more, the nerve supply of that only dissect out or denervated. But the third one is a very difficult to perform. Practically it is not possible. Theoretically this looks fun, but practically not possible. But in case of vagotomy, these two, truncal and the selective, is carried out most commonly, most frequently. Do you understand? So further operations, gastrojejunostomy where it carried out in case of the duodenal ulcer mainly. Duodenal ulcers mainly where the pylorus of the stomach is dissected and directly connected to the jejunum. Jejunum, isn't it? And rest of the operation, if we take the another lecture, in that will be discussed in detail, isn't it? And all these surgical procedures, they have to carry under the general anesthesia. Do you understand? So this is the surgical treatment for the peptic ulcer. So this is these are the indications and these are the procedures are there. In gastric ulcers, partial gastrectomy, vagotomy, pylonosplasty. While in duodenal ulcer, the vagotomy, it will be either truncal, selective or the highly selective. Gastrojejustomy, pyeloplasty, andectomy, and the subtotal gastrectomy. Okay, hope that understood. Watch the lectures repeatedly, isn't it? Prepare yourself and togetherly try to watch the all three lectures of the peptic ulcer. Part first, part second, and part third. And prepare it as exam point of view. Prepare it for the long question. Okay. Thank you for watching the lecture. If you have any difficulty or you doesn't understood any point, you can share in the comment.